follow your bliss. That's the most important thing in your life, is follow your bliss. And I used to have a little sports car. This is quite a while ago, and my license plate said Bliss. I have been creating art since I was 5 years old. And my mother used paints for certain things, like she did like rose mauling and everything. And I always asked her for paints and she'd say no. You know, she was always afraid I'd paint the walls or something. I went to my grandfather's apartment in Minneapolis when I was 5. And he bought me a set of paints. And in the kitchen, his kitchen had a big wall, and he let me paint anything I wanted to on that big wall. And that remained on there forever. He wouldn't let my grandmother paint over it or try to wash it off or anything. And it was still on the wall when my grandpa died and my grandma sold the apartment building. So I really spent years just sketching and painting and going all over, and took some art classes, taught some art classes. I did some night classes through WCTC. I met so many interesting people, and I was teaching adults, and that was really a lot of fun. We had a really good time. And after I was that class, I got in the quilting, because a lot of the people in that class were quilters. So then I kind of let everything else go and have enjoyed it ever since. We made a trip out west, and I did one of the squares, you know, like this, you know, a little tiny sport car we had, and I got home and I had to take it out because trying to sew this in the car was unreal. Making a quilt or something takes a lot of time. So when I come down, I just work where I left off. If it's something I really like, you know, I'll have no trouble getting into it. But if it's something I don't think I like, then I might abandon it and then go on with something else. And I have a lot of quilts that have never been finished. And everybody's saying, you gotta finish that, you gotta finish this. And it's very hard to go back and finish stuff. And that's probably one of my downfalls, is I don't finish everything. And I just kind of keep going. As far as putting things together, sometimes I'll just, you know, throw fabric out and see what looks good together, and usually something that you might not really like ordinarily, but it goes together with something else. Of course, my quilts have evolved more from more primitive to a little more complex. And this one is near done. It's got I have to sew the stems and a couple leaves on. And sometimes you have overlap like that, and this makes it more dimensional. So anyway, this is the raven. The dolls were just primitive in the beginning, and then pretty soon they had to have clothing on and embroidery on the clothing. And you know, I'm not a primitive person, but that's what I like. But I just go too far. You know, I keep going, and embroidery and flowers, and you know, I make everything. Talking about my dolls, this one is made out of paper mache. And I had this very fancy clothes, and turn around, he's got a diorama on the back. But when I'm doing something, I can actually see it, and there's something about I can see it in my head, and I will sketch it out and then work from there. She's got, everything's embroidered, her shoes and everything. And she's got lambing time, I named it. You know, she's got this lamb here, and the wool, I had to make all little knots for the wool to make it a little more dimensional. So I sat for a day just doing knots. I think I get inspired just going to museums, seeing those old samplers that the women made in the 1800s or 1600s. I like something like that inspires me, or looking through quilt books, that'll inspire me, or just being together with my friends, because someone always has something exciting. My love of animals came really early. I think that's why clothing comes in, because I relate a lot to animals. And I can kind of see them in their little house, you know, sweeping the floor and cooking on a stove and going to bed. And in fact, I do have a dollhouse, and I have all the little furniture and stuff. And I've done like the little quilts and the little canopies on the bed. I find that fun. I guess they do have personality and work to do. In 1970, I had a real serious operation on my back. What happened was my spine was twisted kind of at the end, and I got out of the car one day and fell to the ground. During that time that I'm trying to recuperate, I was in so much pain that I didn't do anything, nothing. You know, it was just the pain was there. And it took me about 4 years to get back into the groove again. I went through that, you know, I went through it. And it was very disheartening, but I just couldn't do it. And I finally, just gradually, it was almost like I had to teach myself what the steps were and everything, and relearn things, because it was so long. And I had ups and downs, and then finally it's back to normal. When an artist does a project, you're into a different climate and everything. You know, you go into a certain different environment. An hour might seem like 5 minutes, and you just kind of go into that. I'm just at peace while I'm doing it. You know, I guess it's just me. It's a connection to life. If I weren't able to do this, I'd be entirely disconnected from life. You know, this is my life, I guess. I know there's other things in my life that are very important, but this is me.